Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? All right, Saints are back on the practice field this morning. Mike Triplett, ESPN.com. Good enough to jump aboard with us to recap all the action. Mike, thanks, man. How are you?
No, man, I don't know who the starting quarterback is yet.
I wasn't even going to ask because
really?
Because I do know the answer. It's Jameis Winston. It was always going to be Jameis Winston. It's going to be Jameis Winston. That's not going to change. Like, Jameis is going to be the starting quarterback. Mike, why is this so hard? Why are we pretending like practice reps actually matter when one guy has played in 80 NFL games and the other sucked for 4? Why are we still pretending like this is a battle?
Well, that's a fair question, but look, the thing about Jameis Winston, obviously, is we need to find out, and the Saints need to find out if he has a fatal flaw that he just can't overcome. Tampa Bay obviously ultimately made that decision. I like the concept of a Taysom Hill offense and think it could work if that's what they wanted to go with. But I agree with you that they would prefer for Jameis Winston to work, but they need to find out if he's going to work. And I think we've seen that. I don't think he's done anything to lose the job so far in camp. He has thrown very few interceptions. He's thrown a lot of safe passes to the running backs and stuff. But they can better chart the decisions he's making and the process he's going through. And I think they need to make sure that he's going to work before that's a predetermined decision, because they have a lot of trust. Like, Taysom Hill is even more than a Chase Daniel or Ryan Griffin level fallback option.
Yeah, Jameis Winston's going to be the starter. But I get it. I mean, I understand all of the conversation, but you didn't bring him in a year ago to sit behind Drew Brees and then re-sign him this year just to not play behind a gimmick guy, with respect to Taysom Hill. What I am curious about, Mike, is where, for those of us who don't get to go to practice every day, where are they kind of in the progression of camp at this point? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but just big picture, how far along are they?
Yeah, they've pretty much finished installing just about everything now. And you're right. That is one thing that we probably don't even do a good enough job of conveying year in and year out. We say the quarterbacks look good, they completed this many passes. But what they're doing is the first 3 or 4 days of camp, it's a lot of run stuff. It's a lot of base. You don't even see the third DB on the field. And it takes until just these last few practices where you get a lot of 2-minute, you get a lot of red zone, you get some dime. We saw some dime yesterday. So that advances throughout camp, and you're getting a lot more high-level stuff that they're asking the quarterbacks to do, and a lot more situational stuff as they go on. Usually by the time we get to the second preseason game on Monday night, they've probably installed everything. So by then they should have their minds pretty close to made up after that second preseason game. The third preseason game is right behind the second one. It'll be interesting to see if they're playing Taysom, Jameis, and the starters a lot in the third preseason game or not, or if they're going to, they won't tell us after the second preseason game, but they might know after the second preseason game.
And Mike Triplett's with us on Twitter at Mike Triplett. Based on what we saw in the first preseason game, where Tony Jones was really good, Eric Burrell was really good, like, there were some very noticeable standouts, Zach Bond. Does that correlate with what you all have seen through the practices at this point, or were there guys on Saturday who were like, oh, that's different?
Yeah. Well, yes and no, because one thing that we do not see in camp is people trying to tackle other people.
Okay.
So you don't get a great review of the running backs. They all tend to look good in training camp settings because no one's tackling them, and even if they might have lost 2 yards, they still turn it into a 35-yard run down the field.
Right.
And likewise, you don't know if linebackers are missing tackles or missing angles. So the two guys you happen to mention first, Tony Jones and Zach Bond, were eye-openers for a lot of us, especially Zach Bond, who, the mere fact that they drafted Pete Werner in the second round and then re-signed Quan Alexander made me think this team might have given up on Zach Bond already, and now he looks like the leader among that trio, at least for week one, while Quan's starting to get healthy. Although I will say Quan Alexander has had some nice practices this week and has come along faster than I thought he would as far as participation. But so I would say those guys. But then the things we do always get to see in camp is receivers and cornerbacks. And actually, I had mentioned going into the game, and quarterbacks, I had mentioned going into the game that the guys that had been popping in camp that I expected to see pop again in the game included Marquez Callaway and Paulson Adebo. And what we saw from them has definitely matched what we've seen throughout camp.
Wait, so what did you see from those guys?
Well, Callaway just carries himself like a number one receiver, is being treated as a number one receiver, is being fed by both quarterbacks like he's the number one receiver. Now, to be fair, Traquan Smith missed 2 weeks of practice, just came back yesterday and actually had a really nice practice today. And Michael Thomas could be back by the end of September if everything goes well. So I've held off a little bit on, super lofty, get Marquez Callaway on your fantasy teams. He's going to be a 1,200-yard receiver. I don't necessarily think that, but he's going to be very involved, and he has looked really smooth throughout camp and just been a go-to guy for both guys. Paulson Adebo, on the other hand, I don't know that he's the week one starter. Actually, Ken Crawley has had just as good, if not a better camp. But I had just started to come to the realization with Adebo that he just doesn't – he doesn't look lost out there. He looks comfortable out there. Even though he didn't play football last year, he's obviously got ball skills and a length. And I thought, I could envision a scenario where maybe they do just throw him in there and let him go through all the rookie learning curves and take all his knocks and just, throw him into the pool and teach him how to swim. If he's going to keep looking in the preseason games like he did in that first game, every time they tested him, he stood up to it. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets on the field even more than they were originally anticipating.
Mike Triplett is with us. He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, ESPN.com. Be sure you're reading his stuff there. They also signed a couple of free agents, Mike. And I want to ask about Kevin White. You all got a chance to talk to him today. Is this a guy who has a realistic shot of making this team?
I don't know about the team, but, now that we have all those practice squad spots and so many veterans can take up practice squad spots, I could see him staying in the building for a while. He was on the 49ers practice squad all last season and then kept popping onto their roster a couple times when they needed some depth. There's a reason why, even though he has only, I think it was 6 catches over the last 4 years, he continues to get work. There's so much talent there, and it stands out. He caught a touchdown pass in his first practice, but it's obviously hard to get too lofty expectations for him when he is on his 4th team in 4 years. Right. He's obviously not cracking these rosters, but there's something that intrigues teams over and over again with him, and health has been his biggest issue, not a lack of ability.
Mike, what are you looking for between now and the end of the second preseason game on Monday?
Well, look, we're the quarterbacks we talked about, but that's a big thing. I want to know, can they do anything in this game to change anyone's mind? I think we were hoping that it would be more obvious, that we would see it on the practice field, we would see it on the games and know who it was going to be, and we haven't so far. So it's possible that a second preseason game, if someone is spectacularly good or spectacularly bad, could still swing that battle a little bit. But other than that, I would say just young guys who might move into roles. We just talked about Paulson Adebo. We just talked about Zach Bond. All the guys battling for defensive tackle, like Jalen Dalton and Malcolm Roach, look like they're going to be the week one starters. Are they going to look ready for it? I'm much less concerned about anyone that we already know is a starter on this team. But I will tell you, maybe Marcus Davenport will flash in the game like he's been flashing in practice, because I know he's going to take a long time to convince people. But I mentioned, he's a guy I'd be buying a lot of stock in right now too. When you combine his health and the opportunity he's got right now.
2 more things, and you could be as expansive or as pithy as you like. Number one, is a trade still an option for this team to add a corner, defensive lineman, receiver, spots where we've talked about them needing some guys?
I continue to think it's possible at corner because, Sean Payton has just hammered it home so many times how much he feels like they still need an upgrade at that position. Xavier Howard appears to be off the table. I don't know if Stephon Gilmore ever really was on the table. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they went all in on that position. But the one thing that I think now is the guys in camp are doing well enough that they don't need to go like medium in on that position. They don't need to trade for the next Eli Apple at this point. They either go with what they've got or they go for a real upgrade. Who maybe even somebody who takes over as the number one guy and they don't re-sign Marshawn Lattimore. I think that kind of trade wouldn't shock me, but I don't think they're as desperate to just bring in a warm body at that position anymore. And I guess I would say the same for others, but there is no question that corner and defensive tackle in particular are two positions where guys are going to get cut from other teams, and the Saints are going to bring them in that first week of the regular season. Kicker being another one. I don't know if they're going to sign a kicker until week 1 or if they're just like waiting for Baltimore to make its cut.
Who's going to kick on Monday?
Who needs to practice kicking? The kicker, the week 1 kicker is in someone else's team right now. He's practicing kicking with them.
Okay. But literally in a game, what do you do? Like, just
it's a good question. I thought we might see somebody by now. It's not impossible that they just decide we're just going for 2 and going for it on 4th down in the preseason game. But there are professional kickers out there ready to kick that don't need a lot of warm up time. So we'll see in the next couple of days if they bring someone into the game or not.
Okay, the last thing, is there a guy right now who, when camp started, you did not think would have been on your 53 that at this point you're like, that guy's going to make this team?
Well, I did not have Ken Crawley on my 53-man. I did a 53-man roster before camp started. I didn't have Ken Crawley on it, and as of today, I have him. He's going to be the starter in week 1 at corner.
Oh, no.
That doesn't excite a lot of people, but I will say this. If you want an optimistic example of could a guy like Ken Crawley really be the starter for the Saints? Well, Ken Crawley himself was the starter for the Saints in almost this exact same scenario in 2017 and did very well for a very good team that year. And then Ken Crawley 2018 was a big disappointment. But, we've seen it before. Delvin Breaux being another example. Nobody's ever doubted Ken Crawley's natural talent. And as Sean Payton said the other day, you combine that with now years of experience in the league. He's just got a little bit more savvy to him. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, like I said, I agree. I did not have him making the roster originally, but as of today, he's held up pretty well in that position.
You're selling me on Ken Crawley.
Not selling you.
I'm so sad.
Predicting that he'll be out there.
I'm so sad. I can't believe this is where we are.
Here's my real sales pitch, though.
Okay.
The rest of that secondary looks real good.
Okay.
You think of number 2 corner sometimes maybe as the second most important position in the secondary. But, like yesterday when they were doing red zone drills in their dime package with their 4 safeties where you've got, Malcolm Jenkins, C.J. Gardner-Johnson as your nickel safety, Malcolm Jenkins is your number 2 safety, P.J. Williams is a very adequate 4th safety out there in the field. Marcus Williams is a really talented 1st safety. Marshawn Lattimore having a great camp. And all of a sudden you're like, well, the second corner is just the 6th most important DB on the field. Maybe they can get by with an average player at that position.
You're selling me on Ken Crawley. He is Mike Triplett. He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, ESPN.com. Go read his stuff. Thank you, Mike. We always appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, man. We'll see you. It's after further review. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.